hobby. Everybody has their own drug, right? Some people smoke, some people drink. I don't do none of them. I build my car, right?
Yeah.
That's just how it is, right?
Tuners, rice rockets, rice burners, even Jap scrap. Welcome to the wonderful world of modified Japanese car culture. Now, when I was a kid, hot rodding meant American cars, starting with little deuce coupes that the Beach Boys sang about, to even making race cars out of fuel tanks, out of jet airplanes. But in the 70s and 80s, we started to see a resurgence of a different type of hot rodding. The Hondas and Toyotas that our dads drove were pretty boring, but strap on a turbo, maybe increase the engine size a little bit, and you've got yourself a Japanese domestic market hot rod. These are right-hand drive versions of the cars we grew up with, but they're way different from the cars that we were able to buy here. This is not to say that the Japanese industry didn't produce some pretty good production cars. The fabulous Toyota 2000 GT, these things are worth hundreds of thousands of dollars now. And maybe the most important Japanese sports car of all time, the 240Z. Okay, never mind that it was designed by a German and was a dead nuts copy of the Jaguar E-Type. It changed North Americans' outlook on what Japanese cars could be. It was sporty, it was beautiful to drive, and it was cheap and reliable. What's not to like? Now, Japan is a small island nation. It would fit 2.5 times into British Columbia, yet they got 120 odd million people and essentially no natural resources. They have to import all their petroleum. So when they were engineering automobile engines, economy was a real issue. But to me, the breakthrough in Japanese engine engineering came, well, we're showing a Datsun logo here, came when Honda introduced the CVCC engine in the Honda Civic. Now, this was the first level of domestic emission controls in the United States. The domestic industry was saying, it can't be done. Honda said, not only can it be done, it can be done with a 1.5-liter engine. Now, they were looking for fuel consumption and low emissions, but at some point, somebody said, maybe we can make this go fast too. And one of the ways to make it go faster was to bolt a turbo on it. Intercoolers, higher boost pressures, all of a sudden you've got a rocket ship of a car. Let's go inside and see how we can make this work. I'm with Greg Whitehead here, who's a bit of an expert about Datsuns. And did you ever hear how Datsun got its name?
No.
Well, the story that I heard was that Nissan hired a Swedish marketing expert who had given Volvo its name, and they said, we need a new product name for our cars. And he said, how soon do you need this name? And they said, by Thursday morning. He said, that soon? That soon, that'll do it. Told to me as a true story. We started talking earlier about how Japanese engines were specifically designed for fuel consumption and emissions, but they started making them go faster too with turbos and advanced technology. Greg, tell us about some of your early experiences with that product when it came here.
Well, when they started bringing over the used engines from Japan, right? They had twin cam heads, twin side draft carbs on them, right? These were like this was the racing stuff that they had in the stock cars, the street cars over in Japan. And we get them over here, we were blown away. We had to port and polish and make these things work and put cams in them. And then these engines came over, right? They started bringing them over back in the, I'm going to say, mid 80s, I guess, when they started bringing them over from Japan. And we started putting the same blocks, whatever, they'd bolt right up to the transmissions. We put them in, you put a wire and a fuel line up to these things, and you had like double the horsepower of anything that came here. In Japan, they had all the good stuff. So we were convinced they kept all the good stuff for themselves. And once it was legal to bring them over and we put them in now, they didn't have emission tests then, they didn't have catalytic, well, I guess there was catalytic converters then. We were still, but they were in older cars. And then the Hondas came out, right, with 4-valve per cylinder technology. It was like motorcycle technology. That's where the power was incredible out of these cars. Small engines that made lots of power, very reliable. And so it kind of evolved to that. And then Honda had variable cam timing, right? So it was like putting a camshaft in the car, would idle perfect. And when you get up to a certain speed, it changes the cam timing. And the power these things had were incredible. A prime example, the Honda S2000, right? 2.2 liter engine making 240 horsepower. It's like, it's unbelievable. And then people started transplanting those hot engines, the real good ones, into their little Honda, little street Hondas, because there was no more porting and polishing. You do some porting and polishing, but they made so much power, you didn't have to do that. There's no carburetors were gone now, they were putting fuel injection on, and I guess that wasn't enough, and they started turbocharging them. So you put the turbos on, they were making great power, and then they started, as they continued to bring over the great engines from Japan, they came turbocharged. So we're and they're doing that to this day. They're transplanting these crazy engines, right? Nissan has the GTR Skyline, right? And that's got inline six, twin turbos, twin cam, right? These things, they call them Godzilla in Japan. They're lots of power. In Japan, they had a SR20 DET turbo engine in these things. They were just fire-breathing little rockets. It's like, oh man, so the guys from Japan bringing the stuff over from Japan, and they started transplanting them. And that's, I guess, a current-day drift car because they get so much power out of these SR20s. And a little four-cylinder, all-aluminum engine designed as a turbocharger. You don't have to do the modifying anymore. It's already built for you, right? You have to port and polish and change cams and stuff. That's gone. So you just bolt in these engines you get for really pretty cheap, and they don't put lots of miles on them over there. They can only run them for so long before they do they have to scrap them because it costs too much money to keep up the maintenance on them for emission reasons.
The trend carried on from Japan, especially these Civics, the 93 to 95, the EG chassis code is proven with Spoon Sports, Jay's Racing, HKS, you name all the big ones out of Japan. They're the ones modifying the cars, and we're just following the trends here in North America and trying to keep up with them, but it's quite the battle. It's unfortunately, it's the street racing reputation that has put an effect on us who are trying to do this all legally and legitimately. I think it needs a little more promotion and maybe even giving the kids an opportunity at Downsview Park. It's not used on Friday and Saturday nights. Maybe the police and the Mothers Against Drunk Driving, the PACER program could come together, put something, if the government would bypass it, on Friday and Saturday nights at Downsview Park so that, these younger generation could come out, drag race their car, beat the hell out of them, have fun with it, but at a legitimate, legal way of doing it.
If you've ever driven in Tokyo, it is, well, they call the highways there the depressways. I actually watched the entire Star Wars trilogy on the bus, and we never moved. So they've got all this incredible performance, and they must just sit at the stoplights and argue with each other because they can't go anywhere. And in the 80s, they used to write the specifications of the car on the side, 2.0 liter, double overhead cam, horsepower, torque, so they could point to it and say, oh yeah, check this out, buddy, look what I've got, because they couldn't go anywhere. It's not just engineering that's come from Japan. There's a style of driving that's come from there too. Now, in our day, we were always told that the racing line is the fastest way through the corner. The rally guys used to, however, throw the car sideways and get totally sideways. And a rally driver, Walter Roll, possibly the best driver ever, told me this was the coward's way through the corner. Coward's way. He said, yeah, because you throw the car sideways because you don't know where the corner's going. So if the corner opens up, you just back the steering off and away you go. If it tightens up, you stay sideways and scrub the speed off. He said, but as navigation got better and better. We knew where the proper line was, and he took the racing line. That's one of the reasons he was so successful. Now, in Japan, they got a lot of mountain roads, and they had these very powerful cars, particularly the Sylvia Turbo, and they developed a style of driving going sideways all the time. Now, that's become known as drifting. Now, has a reprobate like you, have you ever done drifting, at least on purpose? We're not talking about driving in the snow here in Canada.
From road racing, I'm a road racer, right? And sometimes you're doing some drifting when you don't really want to. You're sliding through corners, whatever. I did some off-road racing, some dune buggy racing, way back, and you had to be going sideways to make the corner. You're like you're talking loose, gravelly stuff. But now this drifting, it's on the road, it's on pavement. You've got grip, right? And the wheels are just spinning all the time. You need lots of horsepower to keep it going.
They're not just talking about speed with drifting, it's a style thing, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. It is a style, and I take my hats off to the guys who do it. I've seen some of these, they're going really fast, right? And they're synchronized, they're dancing around. It's almost like a ballet on a track, right?
It's an Olympic sport coming up, and we got synchronized swimming. Why not synchronized driving?
Why?
I'm Brad Carlton. I drive a DMCC, car number 12. There's actually a ton of tracks. We did run Mossport. We run a lot in Quebec. It used to be on the western side of Canada, but due to attendance and whatnot, it just kind of faded from there. DMCC has been, I'm going to say, around since 2003, 2004. I got into it in 2008. No, I drive sideways, yeah, that's the thing. It's a pro series, Canadian pro series for drifting. This competition is about proximity and how close you are to the other vehicle and your speed, your line, and your angle. There's a showman factor. I mean, the wow factor, like, wow, he did something that you physically couldn't picture a car doing, and he did it,
My name's Cody Lawhead. We're from St. Catharines, Ontario. I drift for S1DC Stage 1 Drift Crew. Been around for about 8 or 9 years now. LS6 blocked, we picked up. All forged internals, everything's done. We managed to fit it in the Nissan, and it works quite well. It puts the power to the wheels where we need it, lots of torque. Turns out we ended up winning, we just drove harder than everyone else.
I'm Brandon Yap. I actually flew over from Calgary to do this. This is my car, it's the 93 Honda Civic. B-swap motor, racing with Fearless Motoring. I'm just racing in street front-wheel drive and hope to win. This here is one of my battle wounds from Grand Bend out in just past London. Quite a big stone that came out of nowhere. Okay, so it's a street class, daily driven vehicle. I've had it for about 8 years. Paint's all fresh from last year. I'm running a Honda B-Series motor with a couple of hidden secrets.
Drifting actually is big here. It's growing. Our motorsports culture is a little smaller than obviously the United States, but this series itself has been growing phenomenal. It's I don't know. I look around and I see caged cars now, where before you had a stock 240SX going against another stock 240SX, and now these guys are coming out with big trailers, and they got caged cars with 500 horsepower. So they're actually, some of them they're going to the next level, that's where I drive, and some of them are just starting, and this is the perfect platform for it.
My name's Eric. I'm the owner of Technotic. We've been in business in Canada for 10 years. We specialize in Honda and Acura performance parts. We sell all the parts. We have installation service in-house. We do dyno tuning for these cars as well. We specialize in Japanese imported engines from Japan. We're located in Toronto, basically at Markham Road and 401. Our niche market has always been, since the very beginning, Hondas and Acuras. Our core customers generally are driving 1992 to 2001 EK, EG, DC chassis. Now a lot of people are moving to S2000 chassis and RSX chassis, but that's kind of the core of what our customer base is. Whether it be a muscle car or an import car or a European car, at the end of the day, taking a small light chassis, putting a large engine in it is a great way to build a car. The muscle cars did it that way, and that just all carried over onto the Honda side as well. Now everything in Japan is long gone. We have seen a real change. When we first started doing this, it was very easy to get low kilometer, good condition parts in Japan. So many more people were doing engine swaps and going after these desirable parts. Supply in Japan was so limited. As time has gone on and people still are driving the same older chassis Hondas and Acuras, the parts have been harder and harder to get just because supply in Japan is so dwindled. When you're talking about finding a mint set of Recaro seats that's 10 to 15 years old, that's really hard to do. Same thing that goes for an engine. It's not easy to find low kilometer specialty engines in Japan anymore. They're long gone. We're really competing against a lot of the American importers who are buying engines to bring them in. The very rare specialty Japanese parts command a premium for sure, especially if found in good condition. It's transitioned from bolting on a part for performance, which a lot of people still put the part on for that reason, but now there's a whole collector side of it, where if you have that hard to find Civic Type R cluster, you have a kind of a gem. The tsunami in Japan for sure changed things a lot, even though that affected kind of a small portion. A lot of cars got wrecked in that. Those cars, a lot of them got destroyed, not disassembled for parts or went to a recycler or available at auction. So that wiped out a whole host of cars. You know, you think it's a dream, but you look, you know, when you saw coverage online after that happened, and you see, you know, complete Spoon or a Mugen car flipped upside down in a ditch somewhere, like that actually happened. So.
Hi, I'm Anna from Team SGR, and I'm the president of Sweetie Girl Racing. The thing about the internet is that when information becomes so accessible, and really the birth of the forums where anybody can register, create an account, and share information, it becomes an issue of what information is from a credible source. Anybody with a connection and a computer can suddenly proclaim themselves to be an expert of some shape and form, which when you're dealing with cars is a certain area of liability that's involved and can be dangerous.
Rims, they're the shoes of the car, if you will, and they come in all sorts of shapes and sizes. Well, they're all basically round, but you've got wide wheels, deep dish, offset, you've got 3-bolt, 4-bolt, 5-bolt patterns. Of course, race cars have one nut. The designs are endless. Mon, or Mondo Koro to give it its full name, is a Japanese word designating the circular emblems that are used in that culture, sort of like coats of arms in the Western culture. They identify the family or the character or the brand that we're trying to represent. Round emblems fit perfectly with the shape of a wheel. The Japanese culture didn't need any real influence from Western cultures such as North America or Europe. Well, that said, Canada has played a role in the worldwide rim manufacturing business as well. From humble beginnings about 20 years ago in Quebec, just outside of Montreal, Glenn Chaplin and his crew have established Fast Wheels, otherwise known as Fastco, as a dominant player in the world rim market. Let's go pay him a visit and see where this wheel was actually made.
So he took a big risk and he sold his house and told them, you can't move in for 6 months. With the equity in his house, he bought his first container of wheels. It was quite funny. I was about 15 years old and of course going to high school. So he would get out on the road and sell 12 hours a day, every day, and call me at 2:22, because that's when the bus came in. Says, great leap, sold 2 of these, 4 of those, 6 of these, and I'd have to wait for the UPS guy to show up, and if sure enough, he would, and I'd pack the wheels up and give them to the UPS driver. He had 6 months to sell a container of wheels, and you'll have to ask him, but I think we got 75% through those wheels, which was pretty good. And then, of course, we had to repack all these in a container and move them out and rented our first warehouse just down the street from where we are now, not too far. And this was his first flyer. It was a 1-page flyer. Really, the fast 1, 2, and 3. You're looking at, really was a tire store, a speed shop, and then a car dealer. And in the terms of things, you'd buy your car from a car dealer, and then you'd drive it across the street and go to the speed shop to buy your alloy wheels. And because the car dealer didn't really sell alloy wheels at the time, it wasn't their thing. They were in the business of selling cars. So speed shops became quite a really big, big market, especially in Eastern Canada. I mean, it was some of the biggest. And you can see that the OEMs, they were really missing the boat, believe it or not, where you think I'm spending money on a car, I'm leaving, and I'm taking cash to go buy a set of wheels, and then I'm going over to a tire store and buying a set of tires and trying to put these together. The OEMs really follow the aftermarket, where you can see in the, in the late 80s, stereos were big. I mean, you had to go take your standard radio out of the car, drive across the street and go to the speed shop and get yourself a real, awesome stereo. And of course, nowadays, that market's just died. The OEMs finally catch on, and they start putting, Bose sound system in these cars nowadays, You don't need it anymore. There's still 5% of the market that maybe want to have a louder stereo system, or, the subwoofer in the back that makes their spoiler rattle, or whatever it is. But same thing with sunroofs. Sunroofs would be a big business before that. That's all died now. So you're starting to see the OEM manufacturers starting to sell alloy wheels. So that was a big change in the market scene, where not only for us as Fast Wheels to sell just to a speed shop, but now we can sell to the car dealer as well. Of course, it takes a while for them to have the education as a speed shop does. They're still kings of their domain in terms of the correct fitments and the flush and the flash, the offsets, the correct tire size, really how to make it look perfect. But the car dealers are really becoming a lot more advanced in that market. And when it came down to tires now, because of course you'd have to go to your tire store. Well, the OEM manufacturers are now offering that as well, which came a good opportunity for manufacturers like us to offer the package. So we were the first ones to carry actually Falcon Tire, who's really big. It's a Japanese company, of course, and are really big, especially in the 90s, in terms of their product and their offerings. With I think the Falcon 451 was a real big tire that sold well. A V-groove aggressive tread that would come in staggered fitments if you wanted, where you started to see your 350Z and stuff like that requiring a wider wheel in the rear with a much wider tire, and you see, you'd see these guys start demanding packages. These were very technical fitments, and many tire shops or even speed shops or car dealers didn't feel comfortable with mounting and balancing these or recommending these on their own. So Fastco or Fast Wheels became quite a big driver of that type of market.
I started out in my basement with a little suitcase and a briefcase, and I got some catalogs from local suppliers, and about a year and a half later opened up a small 1,200-foot retail store with $1,150.
The market was something different. I mean, back in the day, I mean, you're looking at 2 sizes and maybe 10 tire sizes overall. And of course, the market's changed over the years, where, in the mid-90s, you started getting larger and larger sizes. And then in the late 90s, you're starting to see like a 8.5 on a Honda Civic, which only had a 23.5-inch tall tire. So if you're looking at a 19-inch rim and a 23-inch tall tire, that's 2 inches of rubber on either side.
So as far as what I know about the history of the wheel business in general, in the late 50s, I guess, guys building their own hot rods were taking 32 deuce coupes and bucket tees and this kind of stuff, and they wanted to make the wheels look good. So they used to take a steel wheel. They'd cut the center of the steel wheel out, they'd reverse it, then chrome the whole thing. So you had what was called a chrome reversed wheel. Then a company called Moon came up with the idea of putting what they call smoothies on. So these are a little moon cap, a little hub cap that was kind of smooth and chrome, and that fit onto the center.
What style defines a Japanese design? It's a tough question. I can tell you that European is mesh, for without a doubt. BBS pretty much owns that market. And the 5-spoke is the muscle car. My dad loves that, that's for sure. And for us would be pretty much everything else.
Went to a race in 1968. Me and a buddy of mine suggested that I come up to the track and help flag. Sunday night, I was hooked. The muscle car had hit by 64 of the GTO, and so there was Mustangs in 65 and Camaros in 67 and Chevelles and everything else. When I had my retail stores in early 1970, we were an American speed shop. In 1992, we went to China and we found some suppliers, and we started with the wheels. We didn't actually get into the wheel business until 94. We brought in our first 500 wheels. The factory that made them for us wasn't even prepared to rebox them because the volume was so small. They said, look, we're not going to start a packaging line for 500 wheels. So they sold them to me in their package. And then when I got them here, I opened out all 500 wheels and repackaged them under the Fast Wheel brand name, changing the cap in the center of the wheel and, of course, changing the box, etc. And that's how we started. The name Fast Wheels came from the fact that we were going to sell only fast-moving product. So I said, well, I'll carry just the fast-moving stuff. We'll call the company Fast Co. And that's how we got that name. And then we called the Fast Wheel, Fast 1, then the Fast 2, etc. And that's how it got going.
Well, yeah, there's about 5 or 6 major things that you have to consider when you're going to fit the wheel to the car. The first one would be the PCD, pitch circle diameter, which is the technical term for bolt pattern. I think that's how most people would relate to it. And that is simply the number of bolts or nuts that attach the wheel to the vehicle. And the circle that they draw, if you were to draw a circle through the middle of them, that would give you the actual size of the pattern. So if you have a car that has 5 by 100, what it means is you've got a circle running through the 5 studs or 5 bolts that's 100 millimeters in diameter. It can also be in inches. You can see sometimes 5 times 4.5 or 5 times 4 3/4. Just a different measurement system. But the basic idea is number of lugs times the spacing, and that gives it to you. The next most important thing would be the center bore, the wheel, which has to correspond to the hub size on the car. So you've got the hub protruding out from the brake rotor. Now with your OEM wheels, usually that fits directly. You've got a 64 millimeter hole on the wheel and you got a 64 millimeter hub sticking out. One fits over the other, you're done. In the aftermarket, in order to be able to accommodate a lot of different styles for a lot of different vehicles, they typically put a larger hole in the wheel and then they have a centering ring which will adapt it to that size. And now you're snug. The main reason for that is you want to make sure you don't get any vibration. You know, the studs or the bolts will to some degree center the wheel on, but you want to really have that hub fit nice and tight. So the hub diameter and the corresponding wheel size is important. Next one up would be the offset, and that's probably the hardest thing for most people to relate to. But what it means is how far in or out does the wheel sit relative to the car's suspension and body components. So normally we would kind of want to look at what does the car have originally, and we want to stay in that range, but if we want to stance it, bring it out, well then we want to use a lower offset. If you use a lower offset, it brings it out. So if my car had, let's say, a plus 45 millimeter offset stock, and I go to a plus 25 millimeter, what's happening is I'm moving the wheel out 20 millimeters. So the lower the offset number, the more the wheel comes out. If I increase it, let's say I have a 45 millimeter and I go to a 55, the wheel's going to go in. And this can go right down to 0 and even into the negatives. When you start talking about trucks and off-road setups, whatever, you often see negative offsets. What does that mean? Why is it negative or positive? Well, if the wheel was 8 inches wide and it had a 0 offset, what it means is 4 inches of the wheel would be outside, 4 inches of the wheel would be inside. If I go plus 20 or plus 30, what winds up happening is I have 5 inches of the wheel to the inside and maybe 3 to the outside. So we're just kind of moving the center of the wheel around, if you will, to get it to fit so that the width either goes in or goes out. Wheel design has changed a lot, obviously, over the last 40, 50 years. Like any kind of fashion industry, you see trends, you see cycles, things go up and down. How fast wheels fit into that with the JDM scene, I think, is kind of an interesting parallel, because if you look at the JDMs themselves, the Japanese car companies, originally they were offering low-cost, high-performance alternatives to the big name brands. You know, as we've seen, you had the 240Z, which was basically a more affordable and still very high-quality version of some of the more expensive European sports cars. And as time went on, eventually those Japanese companies developed their own identities and their own designs. It's been very much the same thing for Fast. When we started out in 1995, our goal was to try and provide the Canadian customer with a high-quality wheel that had all of the looks and appeal of the big name brands, but at an affordable price with, you know, kind of that same quality and the same service locally. And we built on that. And for a long time, that's kind of how it rolled. And eventually it's developed more and more of its own personality, where we're at the stage where we are today, where we're developing our own designs and our own tooling, and we're doing all of our own engineering and fitment. I mean, this is way far past where we figured we'd be, looking back from 20 years ago. And we're drilling wheels now. We have our own custom 3-axis CNC mills where we can custom drill the bolt patterns on the wheels. The fitment side of it, the fitment and engineering side of it, is what's driving a lot of our wheel design. And this is something that OEMs and car dealers have responded to. So we started with a little tuner following, and the enthusiast following, and now we built it up, and now it's accessible to everyone. The styling of wheels and what's influenced it, I mean, it used to be pretty easy to say, okay, that's a muscle car wheel, typical deep dish, aggressive, low to negative kind of offset, most of the wheels hanging out, and they were usually staggered too. You ran a little 14x6 up front, like maybe a 15x8 or 1510 in the rear. Very easy to identify that's a totally American muscle car setup. Then the imports, well, you had your classic, 4 spokes and mini lights and this kind of a thing. They were very obviously geared towards minis and Spitfires and, popular import cars at the time. And then, those same styles, interestingly, sort of started into the JDM scene because JDM cars originally were influenced by British and European cars, sports cars at the time. They borrowed some of those designs. So in the earliest days, a lot of the wheels that you saw as aftermarket tuning choices for the JDM cars had that look of the European wheels. And then they took on a life of their own. The JDM crowd started saying, well, let's make it a little wider, let's make it a little deeper, more aggressive, we'll change the spokes. Let's take that lip design, or that look of the mini light, but we'll integrate a mesh in the center. So you had an actual, for the first time in the 80s and going into the 90s, the JDM look wheel became a thing of its own and it was pretty recognizable. And what's weird is we've come full circle where all of the car communities are sort of remeshing together. You have international partnerships between all these different car companies. So some of the mechanicals can be, Japanese, and then the body design was done in, Germany or Italy or something like that. So it's remixing, and I think exactly the same thing's happening with wheel styles. You're seeing these combinations, these concave elements and meshes, that were typically European, but sometimes with a slightly different spokes shape that is Japanese influenced, or you have outright American, like the 5-spoke thing kind of coming back. But there's no one thing you can point to and say, that's a JDM wheel.
This actual wheel should not fit the vehicle. But he wants those wheels so we can make it happen. In the special case right now, I got an issue with caliper clearance because the offset, and he wants the stance to come out. Now I'm not within restriction, it actually is going to touch the wheel. So we got to make it fit. And now we do have enough engagement. My only concern now is actually, because of the stud length of this vehicle, we're not going to have enough turns to actually be legal. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to ream these wheels out to actually accommodate for an ET nut. That actually has extra thread that goes in the actual wheel, so we can actually have enough engagement to be able to put this wheel legally on this vehicle. In this particular case, the ET nut will not go in this actual hole. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to take a reamer and actually make this 15.6 so this ET nut fits in and actually suits the car. It's measuring in a 3D environment with a ferrule gauge. It's 8 microns precise. Want to make sure that the wheel doesn't bottom out. And we also check the PCD and the stud size. So now I'm actually going to take some measurements off the caliper. I'll take the widest range possible. So now I actually have some measurements off this, and I actually have the profile of the front of the caliper.
So basically right now we're at St. Dorothy at the shopping mall for an unexclusive Monday night meet. Every Monday throughout the summer, starting from May to October, just to the end of Breast Cancer Month. It's a gathering of general cars. There's no specific make or model that has to be here. We're open to everyone, and Great way for the community to get together, people who share the common interest and have a good time, enjoy their cars. Before this, it used to be called JDM Mondays. Those were around for about 4 or 5 years. After a while, they started quieting down, and then we've taken over since then, and it's been about 3 years. In May, yeah, in Quebec, the car scene starts generally to start around early May, mid-May, because that's when we start getting, let's say, above 10 degrees. But until then, people have to hold off. I mean, it sucks because in the States, we look at pictures online and, people are all bringing out their cars. But here, like I said, you got to wait a little bit if you want to deal with the cold weather. At one point in this same parking lot, it hit, I think, over 2,000 cars. In the Montreal area, Monday nights is generally exclusive Monday night. Tuesday nights, there's more of the European meet where you see more Volkswagens, BMW, Audis. They like to stick to their own little clique once in a while, so they have their own events. Wednesday night, there's something on the South Shore, which is also a general meet. Thursday as well in Montreal, there's another general one, as well as the Orange Julep, which is a very common place. The Orange Julep, it started a long time ago. There's been, I think every day of the week there's a different event for different people, so they cater to everyone as well. And it's one of those meeting spots where it's, you go there, you got a juice, you grab a hot dog, check out some cars, and you're at the Julep. But other than that, Fridays, I wouldn't say there's too many on Fridays because it's more of a night where people go out. I don't think they hang out in the parking lot as much. Yeah. Saturdays as well, and then if there is anything Saturday, Sundays, it's more of an event. Track days, either at the racetrack, the quarter mile, or show and shine.
I'm Sina.
I'm Matt.
We're the organizers for Mertefa. We established the idea in 2010. When Matt came to Canada, he was looking for the same thing, so I gave him some ideas. I took him to some places such as CSCS, Import Fest, Stretch and Poke. But unfortunately, the scene, based on what we had seen on TVs, on the internet, wasn't as big. So Matt came up with the idea and he said, I want to do something. I want to bring everybody together. Let's create a group of people, all the clubs, doesn't matter what car you drive, Japanese, European, exotic, muscle car, hot rods, rat rods, whatever you have. As long as it's got a motor, bring it by and we'll all get together and we'll all just party together pretty much. In 2010, when we started Ertefa, we started directly working with York Regional Police. We started getting them involved. We started getting them to bring out a couple of cars every week, to be present at the show, for them to walk around and make sure everything is cool. And at the same time, if people had any questions, they can go up to the officers and talk to them and ask them, if certain mods are illegal, if they did this, if they got a certain ticket, what they can do about it, what are their options, what are their ways out of it. And ever since then, we've been working with York Regional Police every week. We have them present. They'll be here soon sometime. And over time, the atmosphere that we've built, luckily, is that the whole scene, everybody, the community has come together because they enjoy the show, because they like to be here, because it's a safe environment for them to be. They don't let anybody else do anything crazy. So if someone starts driving, their buddy who's here with them will pretty much tell them to shut up. Because again, they'll be ruining it for everybody else. We get 1,500, 2,000 cars here. At least double that in people. Ertefa is a Farsi word. It's Farsi and it's also in Arabic. In general, Farsi and Arabic, it just means height. But in Iran, in Farsi terms, Ertefa or Ertefa stands for, it's a slang for the way the car sits, the stance of the car, the way all the modifications of the car flow. So I guess you can say it, stance would be the easiest way to say it. It's just a slang for stance.
How many cars we got?
We got roughly about 500 cars. Yeah. First night out. Luckily, we got really good weather, middle of March, and people had been seeing the winter meets, but just a lot of cars were in storage. As you know, in Canada, 9 months of winter kills us. So as soon as the weather gets good, everybody pulls out the cars. So we got a really good day. We got roughly about 500 cars, and again, we got too big for that lot, so we had to find another parking lot.
So after that was word of mouth. So people, they talk about us on the forums, on the Facebook, you know. So we already had the Facebook, already told people. So people, they shared the link. So they liked our page, you know. We found a better location, bigger, and we got like next week after like what at the AMC, right? Yeah. So over there we got like around like 800 cars, and after that it just grew up like we got doubled. Like double, right? So next week like we got around 1,500 cars, and it was like wow, insane.
The Japanese scene has taken over since the 90s. That just changed the whole car scene, and ever since then, I mean, in Canada, you know, we've seen a huge growth in aftermarket support in Canada. I mean, there's a lot of support in the United States, but for Japanese cars in Canada, it has grown huge.
One of the things that you will find in Saskatchewan is the ingenuity of people here is a lot more of friends helping friends build cars. The biggest import meets in Saskatchewan probably belong to Total Logic, so we do 2 a year. We do defrost and fallout. I mean, oil in Alberta is a big deal, and that funds a lot of car projects. I think that you're going to find in Saskatchewan it's going to start to fund a lot of car projects. So it'll be interesting. It'll also be interesting to see what comes with more people making Saskatchewan their home. When I tell somebody that I'm into drifting, it requires probably about a 10-minute conversation afterwards, right? So you slide around, so it's like figure skating. I'm like, well, sure. You don't find a lot of like clubs in Saskatchewan, aside from like your autocross clubs and your motorsports clubs. Anybody who gets into drifting usually dabbles with Nissans first, S chassis. Some drifters came in from Edmonton, and one of the guys needed a part, and he spent the whole day driving around Regina trying to find a place that sold this part. Couldn't find it, shops weren't opened. He had to get somebody to bring it with them from Calgary the next day, or maybe it was Edmonton. But regardless, yeah, you don't notice those struggles when you live here. It's just customary that, okay, I'm going to order my parts, I'm going to wait for them to come on the internet from the internet and clear customs, and so I'll have my part in 2 weeks. When I was in Vancouver, I was like, oh, I need wheels, or I need some rubber for my wheels, but they're kind of an odd size. And then I like phoned a buddy, and he's like, oh no, I got those in stock, just come down and pick them up. And I was like, oh, this is really weird, and the price is actually reasonable.
4A GE, turboed, lots and lots of custom. One of the things that, well, there was one Honda, but one of the things that has a big effect on the island here is we have different laws. Like I used to live in Ontario, I moved out for the drifting. I would say maybe the second biggest scene in all of Canada. You got Saint Eustache, Quebec, and then you have Victoria, BC. They're really far apart. But the reason I came out here is because the laws are different on the cars. I can find old cars in good shape and it's good weather. I don't have to go through insane safety checks and things like that. But you sort of just go to the grocery store, you register your car, and you drive it to a track. Here's the thing, is a lot of people in North America want to try to be like Japan. Their culture is different simply because of the religion. They're not allowed to build on the mountains. You'll notice in Japan there's no houses on the mountains. There's only temples. So they have to build a road to the temple. Well, it's a low usage road, so it usually goes around the mountain rather than carving straight roads out of it. So they have these roads that are basically closed down racetracks in the middle of the night that no one is on. They did a bunch of stickers that say island style, and I think that captures a lot of what the island, like the island's definitely its own style compared to even the mainland. Going into the States and stuff, we're a lot more laid back, I think, is from what I've heard. I don't know, I haven't gone anywhere else, so. We don't have any sort of emissions controlling governing body or anything like that. In Vancouver and stuff, they have air care where you actually have to go every few years and, get it tested, but we don't have that on the island. Another project car. Duarkasi. They're like an old school Toyota Forum. One of the drift teams out here is Husky Situations. They're very crash and bash oriented. They like to rub doors, tires, fenders, walls. Anything they can run their car along, they will. We have the Japanese car show. Lots of different cars come out to that one. Like tons and tons of like Subarus, Hondas, pretty much everything. From like brand new Subarus to old school Japanese. Yeah. Just about everything. See, we got piles of parts everywhere. I wouldn't go as far as to say that it's cliquey, but there's very dedicated groups of people anyway. You know, huge variety of people in Victoria with all sorts of different genres of car.
My name's Derek Johnston. I'm president of JRP. We're located in Mississauga, Ontario. We've been in this business for 20 years this year. We're kind of a hybrid company. We've got a couple thousand wholesale accounts across the country, and we distribute about 100 major brands. We've primarily been servicing the import side of the performance market since we started. It was funny because I had grown up collecting American cars, you know, Chevelles and all kinds of things like that. And I had sold them to pay for my automotive engineering. I got an automotive engineering degree, and what ended up happening was there was not a lot of work when I graduated, and B, domestic cars, all the larger players in the domestic side of the market were hurting. The market was flooded. There was a lot of price competition, and there really wasn't an opportunity. The opportunity was in the import side of things. So from our perspective, the opportunity was to start from scratch in an area that was very underserved and had a chance to grow very quickly. We started at a very good time. There was in foreign markets, however, Toyota Racing, TRD, and Nismo and other brands that were available around the world. None of those brands were in North America, and none of the parts to fit the American version of those cars were in North America. So myself, being an automotive engineer, had an opportunity. And what I did was I began to travel. I was in Japan 6 or 7 times, and I started visiting a lot of the manufacturers. I went and visited a gentleman named John Concialdi, which is the originator of the cold air intake, and was the sort of the baby for what we now know as AEM. The Japanese, especially, and even more aggressively at that point in time, were flushing parts out of their market. They didn't want parts in their market. They didn't want used cars. They didn't want used cars on the roads. Then there was incentives within their tax structure and within their licensing structure to expel as much of the stuff as they could. So they wanted to try and get rid of that stuff. It made it very easy for somebody in the foreign market, like ours, for example, to go in and buy 100 motors or whatever, containerize them, bring them over here, and sell them. Since like, say, 1990, for example, up until now, very little of the parts come from Japan now, right? There's only certain things that come from Japan. It has become so robust in the North American market and elsewhere that many of the parts are not produced in the Japanese market anymore. There still are some, don't get me wrong. In some cases, the parts that are produced in Japan are only for export. They don't even use them locally. I joke with my staff, you know, Canadians are a bunch of imported people driving imported cars. If there wasn't a social component to this, which you see in the movies, the recent movies that are out there, if you didn't have that social component, I don't know whether this would continue in the same way. Then there's a drift, crowd, and there's a time attack crowd, and there's a drag racing crowd, and there's a music crowd.
younger people are doing. They'll find a car like a 7 or 8 year old Civic, which they know is reliable, it's not going to blow up on them. And they say, you know, I don't really like that color, or I think it could use a bigger rear wing, or I could do this or that with the suspension or the dashboard or whatever you want to do with it. And for a relatively small amount of money, you end up with a car that is truly uniquely your own. It's a car that your father would probably walk to work rather than drive, but that's part of the appeal, right? The whole point is you don't want your dad wearing a mohawk haircut either, and you probably don't want him driving your car. So you can make the car look like what you think the car should look like at a relatively reasonable amount of money. Manufacturers are required to build the cars to meet federal safety standards. You as an individual, ironically, are not mandated to maintain those safety standards. You can, if you want, remove that airbag. You do have to wear a seatbelt because that's a provincial regulation, but you don't have to have rear headrests in the car if you don't want them, because that's a federal regulation that's binding on the manufacturer, not on the owner. So you as an individual have to mostly check your provincial legislation, because that's really what affects you in terms of what the car is capable of doing. Most provinces in Canada have an E-test, emissions test, and if you put some massive turbo on your little Honda Civic engine, the chances are it's not going to pass that E-test, and when it comes time to renew your license, you're going to be at the back of the line. I get email all the time when there's ever a drag race at Toronto Motorsport Park, the Cayuga area. Sometimes the cops will set up spot checks on either side of the entrance, and if you've got a headlight burned out and you're driving a Slam Civic, they'll pull you over for, that's pretty much close to harassment. On the other hand, we see initiatives like the Eradicate Street Racing everywhere, something like that, where the police are actually trying to work with these communities, with these young kids, and say, listen, we know why you want to do what you do, because we were 18 once too. They all were car freaks when they were kids. They understand what's going on. But they also don't want you to kill yourself, and they don't want you to, more importantly, to kill civilians. So if it's going to happen anyway, maybe there's some way where we can sanction it, put everybody into a safer environment. You can have your fun, and nobody is hurt in the process. So let's hope that there's more of that and more positive interaction between the authorities and the kids, because if you keep pushing the kids away, they're just going to get more and more uppity. Any parents out there know that's going to happen. The thing about the automobile that has always struck me is that it's the only manufactured product that generates the kind of enthusiasm that the automobile does. Maybe watches, but I've never seen a magazine dedicated to refrigerator sport. And I think that comes from a combination of its functionality, because the car is the mass transit system in our country, whether we like it or not, and from the emotions that it generates in you. And that always starts with styling. They always say that styling always sells, and it always will. We tend to think of Italian cars as being sexy and very vivacious. We tend to think of British cars as being maybe a little stuffy, but the old English club atmosphere with the chrome and the leather. American cars are flamboyant and dramatic looking. Japanese cars took a while to establish a design ethic, and I think they're still struggling with that to a degree. You could take the badges off a BMW, any BMW, and know it's a BMW. Toyota is still working on that. They've actually hired a British designer for the Lexus division to try and come up with a look that says Lexus. So far, the best they've come up with is that spindle grille they've got on all their models now. And Japan is still trying to come up with a look that says Japanese. One of the closest cars, oddly enough, that came up with that was Toyota Celica back in the mid-'80s. It almost looked like a pagoda with a very straight roofline, and I thought, there's a car that actually reflects Japanese references. If they did have something going for them, it was probably science. In the 90s, aerodynamics started becoming more and more important, and the Japanese cars reflected this. Again, fuel economy was a big part of their rationale, and so the cars were more aerodynamic, they were smoother, more bar of soap looking, if you like. The downside of that is that if you're designing cars to the same aerodynamic principles as the guy in the next building, pretty soon they're all going to start looking the same. And the other thing about Japanese cars is that you very seldom see a car in Japan from a long distance away. You see them up close all the time because everything is so crowded. I remember the first Honda Legend, the first Acura Legend, as they called it in North America. From 200 yards, you couldn't tell it from a Honda Accord. Up close, you could tell the detail. But I once spoke with a Pontiac designer who said that the rationale behind a particular feature of a GTO at the time was, we want people to know this is a Pontiac from 300 yards away. So it's a difference in perspective. For Americans, it was important to have the car make a statement in a broader sense. For the Japanese, it had to make a statement from up close. So fit and finish were very critical to them. This is why Honda Accords were finished better than some high-end luxury cars. The other thing is that the Japanese have a different sense of color than we do. And I remember back in the 90s, some of the color matching. You'd have one shade of tan here and another shade of tan there and another shade of tan here. And to our eyes, it looked very disjointed. The finish and the distance between the panels was virtually zero, but the color match wasn't quite the same. So it took a while for all of these cultural issues to kind of get resolved.
My name is Cam Taylor. I own a company called Car Candy, which is specifically targeting JDM tuner industry. I started off back in 1998, stemmed from an idea. Started going to car shows, and a lot of my girlfriends were running over to me and saying, fix my big shirt, fix my big t-shirt. I was like, well, that looks hideous. Like, why do you guys? So there was nothing back then, back in the 90s, that was targeted for females. There were no model outfits, there were no girls' t-shirts, there were just these big bulky men's t-shirts. So I was cutting them up. Dark Nights Nationals, my first car show doing. You know, the owners of the show weren't happy because the concept was new, because I was making the girls look sexier. I'm like, well, you can't see what you're wearing. Like, the logo is still there, I just modified your shirt. So it was modifying apparel. I have a background in modifying everything and anything. So I've always been modifying vehicles. Now I'm modifying apparel to make it creative, different, unique. Here I am. I still love the cars. Probably speed over show. So show cars are beautiful, but I think for me, it's the motor. It's the speed, the torque. The owners of their cars do not want girls on their cars, sitting on their cars. They don't want scratches from their jeans or whatever the girls are wearing. Fabric is going to scratch the paint of their car, and they've spent a lot of money on their cars. So that's another rule of thumb. We let the girls know, even if they don't work for me, if there's some other girls, I say try not to lean up against the car, don't sit on the hood. We've had dented hoods. Most guys, though, won't care. If there's a hot girl, they'll be like, I don't care. Then you get the diehard guys who don't want anything happening to their vehicles. So my reputation with Car Candy has always been keeping it classy, empowering the women, and making sure the girls are friendly with the crowd.
My name is Julia May. I've been a model for the past 3 years or so, and especially in the import scene for the past 2.5 years. There's tons of girls that's come out because they want to be the epitome of sexy. I think personally they've gotten the wrong idea. They think that they can throw on a bikini, they can throw on a crop top and booty shorts, and they'll instantly become an import model. You know, they sit in front of a car, or they stand in front of a car, and they'll instantly become an import model if they take a picture with that car. And really that's not the case, because you're trying to showcase the car, you're not trying to showcase yourself. A real import model knows that. And real import model knows the benefits of the car, what's great about that car, what's inside that car. And if you ask a real import model in front of the car that she's modeling in front of, she knows everything about that car. It's the knowledge behind it, it's the understanding of that car.
で我々の会社の歴史は極めて古くて、1888年に、スタートしました。例えば我々は合併した会社ですが、我々の前身の一つである日本工業で、この会社は1903年に創業していますが、この会社は日立製作所の親会社でもあります。でさらには、日産自動車の源流でもあって、ですからその当時から石油会社と自動車会社の関係がスタートしているということです。自動車会社が良質のエンジンをどんどん改良して作っていくように、石油会社も良質の燃料を提供するという任務があります。で一方でエンジンについてはこれはやっぱり潤滑油が不可欠でありますので、その潤滑油を高品質の潤滑油を提供するということも我々石油会社の任務であります。ですから我々と自動車会社との関係はおそらくは技術的にもですね、私が生まれる前、すなわち50年以上前からのつながりがあるというふうに思います。なかなか難しい質問だと思います。おそらくですね、その日本のカーメーカーが今、トラック商用車も含めて13社、乗用車で8社ありますが、おそらくその一つ一つの開発されたエンジンに対して、いろんなオイルの開発作業をやってきたというふうには思います。ただそれがどれぐらいの以前からどういう開発をしてきたかっていうのは私自身も全てを理解しているわけではありませんし、なかなか難しい答えなんですけども、ここそうですね、おそらく30年以上我々と自動車会社との間で我々の研究設備を使いながらやっぱりベターな潤滑油を開発するために共同作業をやってきたという歴史は確かであります。日本には、さっきちょっと申し上げましたが、乗用車で9社、それから商用車含めると13社の、カーメーカーがあります。で全てのカーメーカーがおそらくはみんな各々の技術哲学を持って、開発をしているというふうに考えます。例えばですね、トヨタであればトヨタ喜一郎、それからホンダであれば本田宗一郎という非常に有名な創業者が日本にはいて、で彼らの例えばトヨタならトヨタ喜一郎さん、ホンダなら本田宗一郎さんの技術哲学がそのまま脈々と続いているんだと思います。それはもう各社同じような哲学を持って、同じようなというのは各社にあるその哲学を持って、技術者が開発に取り組んでいるんだろうと思います。例えば、トヨタの場合はトヨタ氏がトヨタは実地現場というものを非常に大切にする会社ですし、それからトヨタが一旦世の中に出した車は最後まで責任を持つというそのトヨタの哲学があります。それからお客様に、トヨタの車は自分たちが作ってあげるのではなくて、我々トヨタがお客様のために作らせてもらうという、そういう奉仕の精神があります。おそらくトヨタという会社はそういう実地であるとか、あるいは、責任、それから奉仕で、こういう日本のその古来の精神をずっと受け続いてきた会社だというふうに思います。一方でホンダの場合は、ホンダ氏が言ってるみたいに極めて斬新なもの、新しいもの、それからそれを自ら作り出すためにどんな努力をするのかということ、というようなことを非常に大切にしている会社です。ですからホンダにはですね、おそらくそのホンダの常に新しいものを求める哲学があり、でトヨタにはその社会的な貢献をしていくという哲学があり、 でそれぞれの会社がそのような哲学を持ちながら車作りをしているというのがその技術者の哲学じゃないかというふうに私は思います。そのきっかけとなったことといえば、オイルショックも一つあるし、それからまたエアポリューションという、大気汚染の問題もあろうかと思います。で日本はですね、日本の車メーカーは最初にやはりアメリカのビッグ3からいろんなことを学んでます。いろんな技術を取り入れて、最初は日本人がアメリカの自動車文化を学びたい、何とかしてアメリカの車を日本で使えるようにしたい。でそれは日本人のために、日本の国土に合ったそういう車を作りたいと思ったのがおそらくきっかけだと思うんですね。で日本という国はアメリカカナダのように道路インフラが整ってませんし、それからアップダウンも多いですし、そういうその日本の国土の中でしかも日本という国はエネルギーを持ってませんから、その非常に高価な燃料をいかにうまく使うか、という条件が課されて、でその中で日本のメーカーは日本人のために日本人向けに車を開発してきたんですね。ですからこういうその日本の車は日本人のための車であったはずなんです、最初は。ところが、おそらくそのオイルショックであるとか、あるいは大気汚染という問題をきっかけにして、逆にその日本人のための車がアメリカの文化の中に取り込まれたと、逆にその我々の日本に適合した車をそのアメリカ人があるいはカナダ人が気に入ってくれたというのがもともとの元来のきっかけじゃないかというふうに私は思います。そのタイミングがたまたまオイルショックとそれから大気汚染の問題、特にそのホンダが、CVCC エンジンを発売したような時期と重なったんではないかなというふうに思います。実際にですね、新しいエンジン、新しいオイルの組み合わせで、これは長年のいろんな積み重ね、技術の積み重ねがあって、例えば新しくできるエンジンの、非常に詳細を言えばですね、例えばクリアランス、部品と部品の隙間、これをどうやってシールをしていくのか、あるいはどうやってその摩擦を減らすのかで、そのために新たな、いわゆる添加剤といいますか、ケミカルを導入したり、あるいは新しい分子構造を導入したりと、いろんな試みをやります。そういう中で機械とエンジンとそれから潤滑自体は、切っても切れない関係にあるんで、そうするとエンジン側が要求する、例えばそのオイルの硬さであるとか、あるいはそのオイルの安定性であるとかで、そういうところに一つ一つ少しずつ改良を加えながら今のオイルが出来上がっていっているというのが長い間での歴史の積み重ねということなので、その特殊なエンジンに特殊なオイルというわけでは多分ないと思います。で一方で、トランスミッションの方はですね、これはあるタイミングで、非常に斬新な駆動システムが出来上がる。でそのためにはどうしても新しいシステムに適応するオイルが必要になってきたり、あるいは、省エネの効果が求められたりすると。でそういう時には要はトランスミッションのメーカーと我々とがですね、一つ一つのそのメーカーをお互いに、技術を共有しながらオイルをこういうそのスペックに持っていこうというそのディスカッションをしながら、新しいそのトータルの組み合わせで新しいものを作り上げていくというようなアプローチをします。例えばそうですね、今トヨタやホンダに乗ってる、トランスミッション、新しいトランスミッションをお互いに、効率の良いものにしていくという作業を共同で開発し、 でその成果が今これらの車に採用されているということであります。日本のその自動車がクールというふうに呼ばれるのは非常に私自身も、誇りに思いますし、嬉しく感じます。でこれはおそらくですね、その自動車だけではなくて日本の今我々が作り出しているものに対して、皆さんがこう感じてクールというふうに感じていただけるんじゃないかと思うんですけど、それはですねやっぱりさっきちょっと申し上げたトヨタであるとかホンダ、トヨタ喜一郎あるいはホンダ総一郎、彼らのその言葉にあるみたいに作り出す製品の中に、例えば、その奉仕であるとか、あるいはおもてなしの心であるとか、あるいは斬新創意、あるいはその不屈というようなどんなものにもそういう哲学、作り出す人間の哲学が込められてるんで、それが皆さんに伝わってクールだというふうに思っていただいているんじゃないかというふうに考えます。我々はですね、もう10年以上前ですけども、20年近くなるんですかね、もともとパリ・ダカール耐久レースをサポートしてました。あるいはそれ以前にはル・マン、10 hours、これをサポートしていました。で近年ではですね、ここ10年以内では例えばF1 で、ホンダをサポートしてきたり、あるいは、今現在は、スーパー GT という日本の、レースをですねサポートしています。で我々その石油会社がこういうレースをサポートしていくということはですね、やはり自動車という文化を若い人にどんどんやっぱ継承していってもらいたいというふうに考えているところから来てますし、こちらアメリカでは、ここ数年ですけども、グローバルラリークラスというそのラリー系のレースであったり、あるいは、数年前からはナスカーにも協賛をしています。で特にナスカーはですね、今年その我々がサポートするカイル・ラーソンという、非常に優秀な若手のドライバーが活躍をしてくれたおかげでですね、我々サポートした初戦で優勝することもできました。これは我々のそのエネオスというブランディング、もちろんその一つの目的でもあるんですけど、やはりモータースポーツを我々一体となって盛り上げていきたいということの表れでもあります。あとですね、もちろん、カナダでは我々パトリックをサポートしてますし、北米全土で、こういうそのサポート活動を続けていきたいというふうに考えています。
They didn't ride in the back of MacTac station wagons. They probably rode in the back of a Honda Accord. And so this sort of vehicle became normal for them. And then when they got to the point of buying cars, what are they used to? They're not used to Fords and Chevys, they're used to Hondas and Mazdas. Kids in the 50s had Deuce coupes to modify and turn into something a little cooler, a little hotter than Dad drove. Presto, we've got a whole new field of customized, modified cars, not based on the stuff that I grew up with, but the stuff that these kids grew up with. So that's where your hot Civics and your hot Mazdas came from. Heat is pouring out of the thing, melting my friggin' socks.